pushed. Give it a second. You're all set, Mayor Rumbus.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me on this very beautiful and warm evening. I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interest at the appropriate time. We have to start the agenda, the minutes of the previous council meeting from June 14th, 2021. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Thank you. Any questions, errors, or omissions? All in favor? That is carried. No business arising from previous meetings, so we'll go on to scheduled meetings and events. And all of our future meetings are there, but we do have a proposed special council meeting for Tuesday, July 20th at 6 p.m. The council meeting is for the presentation of the 2020 annual technical review team's report on the Twin Creeks landfill. So we need a motion to accept that meeting date and time. That's moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. And we'll go on to councillor commitments. Does anyone have any commitments that they'd like to add to our calendar today? Seeing none.
We trip in 2022.
You have booked it?
Yeah. January.
Yay! That's exciting.
Yeah.
Good to hear people are starting to get able to go away.
So that'll be January 23rd to the following Sunday.
Good for you guys.
Thanks.
All right, so we're gonna go with councillor items today. Councillor White, do you have anything for council today?
Nothing today, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Mitchell. Oh, you are muted. Is anyone else having a hard time hearing Councillor Mitchell?
Nothing for me today.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. And Councillor Morris.
Absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Just like to thank Councillor Morris for filling in for me for the announcement with the province for the I believe it was $100,000 going towards our new community center. Teresa, can you remind me what that fund was, please?
That was actually the FCM feasibility study grant. And so for that portion, it was 50% of the feasibility cost, which was the 23,000.
23,000.
Yeah, approximately around there.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Councillor Morris. We had another development meeting that we were in at that time.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, well, we appreciate that. And good job, staff, applying for that grant. It's always good to have money found in other places. So just like to take a moment to introduce Tom Cook, our new Economic Development and Communications Officer. We're excited to have Tom on the team, and I'm sure he is raring to go with all kinds of economic development. Tom, do you want to talk to council just to introduce yourself for just a quick sec?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I wanted to I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight to just say hello, and I am very much looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and getting to work. I absolutely love the Township of Warwick. I am a Lambton County boy at heart, so I do have those Lambton County credentials that I know are very important. But you know, I know the county. I'm familiar with the region. There's a lot of exciting things going on, and I'm looking forward to taking this role. Really by the reins and working with everybody to just keep that development train going in Warwick. There's some interesting things, and I feel as though the position kind of came at the right time. So I'm very much looking forward to the future, and I don't have I just have so many wonderful things to say about Trevor and Amanda. And the first day with it, I was an employee for about an hour, and I was already in a development committee meeting. So it was really cool to just really dive in head first and just get a sense of just from a development standpoint, what's going on, and I've been spending some time, reading the strategic plan, reviewing the CIP, the recent service delivery, and just getting a sense of where the township has been, because then that helps me to help determine where we should go. So it's all good on my end. So.
Well, we are excited to have you a part of the team and your position. We've all been waiting for a long time for this position. So we're excited to have you with us, and the cat is out of the bag as to how wonderful Warwick Township is. The developers are just loving coming here and seeing what all we have to offer. So we look forward to more from that.
For sure.
All right. So we're going to move on, Council, to staff items. The first is a verbal update from Amanda on municipal modernization program funding to support a records management review.
Thank you, Mayor Rumbouts. I believe I attached a notice to the agenda, but I am pleased to announce that the municipality was successful in our application for $25,000 to the Municipal Modernization Program. Specifically, this funding will be allocated to a records management review with a goal to digitize our records management and related services as part of that process. So we just found out the work has to be completed by November 30th. So we've already reached out to our consultants to try to get a timeline in place. It is very strategic for the municipality, given that we will be relocating our township office soon. And we're hoping that this will align with that and help us set up a system at the new location that is more efficient and effective, and hopefully save some money also in the long run. So we're very excited about that.
Well, we are very grateful for that extra funding, and the timing of that seemed to be perfect. So we appreciate staff applying for that one as well. We'll move on to the verbal update from Amanda to provide introduction. Oh, I already did that. I'm sorry, Amanda. We were going to introduce, I do that to Amanda a lot. I apologize. I should have looked at that better. We will move on. Delegations are at 6:30. So we're going to go on to the accounts payable, the GL report. We need a motion to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And I see our planner, Phil, is here. So I'm going to skip down on the agenda a little bit just to give him an opportunity to speak to. We're going to go down to staff reports. And we'll start with A, which is the current municipal service levels and COVID-19 impacts. Need a motion to receive and file that. That is moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments on that report? No questions or comments. I just had one question, somewhat for council. Our EOC meeting or EOC group met to discuss the possibility of lifting our emergency declaration. As council is probably aware, that is something that the mayor is responsible for doing. However, I would like to have council's input on what you think as far as timing is concerned. I know that there's other municipalities within the county that have discussed it as well, and they're trying to decide whether or not we should lift that emergency declaration. So I know there are municipalities like Point Edward and Lambton Shores, Sarnia, that are still housing the immunization clinic. So for them to keep their declaration makes sense because they have volunteers who would be covered under the insurance. What is council's input on this? It's not necessarily a formal thing, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Councillor White.
Just an example for us, our restriction lifting was based on our vaccination rate within our business. Do we know what our vaccination rate is within the township?
I don't believe we have the data for the specific township, but I know that the county is well above the provincial rate that they were looking at for stage 3 even. Councillor Morris.
If it's not going to do us any good, I'd like to move forward and show the public that we're progressing on, everything's coming along good, and we're moving on to normality.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Mitchell, what do you think?
I'm halfway between. I'd love to get back to normal, but I don't want to rush into things either. If there's a benefit to keeping that emergency declaration, then I think we should keep it. We'd have to take a closer look, I think.
So would anybody be against us lifting it if the EOC decided that that would be the best thing?
Mm-hmm.
What does it actually mean, Jackie?
Honestly, when we went through the checklist of what it would take to declare, at the time that we made the declaration, there was a lot of unknowns. And we didn't know how much support we would need from the province. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we went through the checklist and all of the points for declaring were met at that time. We've gone back through the checklist and they no longer apply, as far as we could tell as a group. The main reason was that there was some possibility that if you're under an emergency declaration, then there could be funding to help with that emergency. I think we're beyond that point as well. So I would imagine we'll be discussing it on Wednesday at the county level as well to see what, like we tried to keep it in line with the county. Amanda? Do you have a comment on it?
Thanks, Mayor Rumbat. So I appreciate that information to council, and I think it's great to get council's input into that decision. We did do an emergency exercise training, which included a review of the reasons for declaring a municipal emergency. And my recollection, Mayor Rumbat, is a little bit different than yours. I'm not sure that the EOC landed on a decision or that we were okay with moving out of an emergency, just that it was good to review the checklist, and we did do kind of a pulse check. My recollection was not that we had kind of said that nothing applied any further. But I think getting input from council for you, I mean, you as a chair or as the mayor of the municipality are able to make that decision about ending a declaration. And so great to get feedback from council.
Yeah, just I might have misspoke a little bit. Yes, it wasn't decided at the EOC level at that time. I'm just asking if there would be any objections if the EOC did decide it was time to lift it. I guess that's what I'm looking for from council. Like, I wouldn't want to take council by surprise and just lift it without having there be a little bit of discussion about it. But Amanda's right. It wasn't decided. Nothing was decided at the EOC level up to date.
Just my comment. I think Lambton Public Health has done an excellent job of rolling everything out, and I think that shows in our numbers of cases and our numbers of vaccinations. So I am supportive when it's appropriate, for sure. I just hope we're not pulling the trigger too soon. That's all. Yep.
No, and I don't have any intention of pulling of doing that without the support of Lambton Public Health as well, because I think they are great. They've been great partners throughout this whole pandemic. So absolutely. I just wanted to get a pulse from council.
I do appreciate you asking for input. That's greatly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Is there any other questions on that report? All in favor of receiving and filing that then? That is carried. Thank you. And now, Phil, we're going to move on to B, which is the temporary use bylaw on Confederation Line. There is a recommendation there, Council. Phil is here if you have any questions. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Morris and Councillor White. Any questions or concerns? Councillor Morris, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Why is it
Okay.
temporary? Why can't it be permanent? The guy wants to put up a shed and leave it there.
Okay, so the shed is considered an accessory building. You can't have an accessory building on a property where there's no principal building.
Okay.
The definition states that you have to have a primary. So that's why we're going with the temporary use. So the temporary use is up to 3 years. His plan is to build the accessory build this year, use the storage, and then build his house right next to where the garage is going to be. It'd be attached within, probably start maybe next year, next summer, and then finish it off. So that's why we're giving them the 3 years.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. Is there anything else we need Mr. Ruff for tonight? Thank you for joining us, Phil. I know it was a last minute request. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good
All
meeting.
right. Thank you. You have a good night. We'll go on to the biannual report from the Township of Warwick Fire and Rescue. We need a motion to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor White. Any questions or comments on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We'll go down to D, the culvert 44 and 51 tender award recommendations. We need a mover and a seconder for those recommendations. Can we do those together? Yes, I'm assuming. Yes. Councillor Mitchell and Councillor White. Any questions or comments on those? Councillor Morris.
Hey, Andrew, like they're on the same road in between the same concessions, if I understand right. They're both on underpass between Confed and Zion.
I believe one is north and one is one's south of or south of Confed and one is north. So they're
okay.
separate concessions.
I guess I was concerned a little bit if they were on the same concession that it might block somebody in if they started both. Do they usually, would they work both of them at the same time or?
I don't know of their construction schedule at this point. They do have a deadline. I'm not sure if they have multiple crews or if they'll do it one at a time.
Okay, thank you. We will be putting a notice out that the roads will be closed, I take it, or whatever.
Yes, that's in the specs that they're responsible to do that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of those that recommendation? That is carried. All right, Council, we're going to go back up to our non-action correspondence. It's quite extensive for this meeting. Was there anything Council would like to highlight for that correspondence? Councillor Morris.
Yeah, 7-10 is from the municipality of Alvin, and they're putting forward that the federal provincial government include apparatuses, training, and equipment and structures for the development of more funding. I don't know if it wasn't included before or not, but anything to support our local fire departments, I'm in favor of.
Okay, so you would like to make a motion to support that resolution then?
That is correct.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Councillor Mitchell? Any questions or comments? All in favor of supporting that resolution? That is carried. Anything else, Council, that you'd like to highlight from the non-action correspondence? All right, just want to thank East Lambton Minor Hockey for their lovely note, recognizing that Council had kind of went above and beyond last season to get our kids back on the ice, and we look forward to seeing them out there playing some games this season. We just need a motion to receive and file the remainder of the correspondence. That's moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. And we have a few action correspondences on the agenda today. First one is 07-91. Second is 0792. That's a letter. Councillor White.
Like to
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor White. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I'd like to support that with Stephanie Catrice's intersection at Nauvoo Road and Egremont Road. We lost a community member there last year who was quite involved in the community and touched a lot of people. And I think it's important to support that. So.
Yes, Bob was very well loved in our community. And would you like to second that?
Yes, I would like to second the motion, and I agree with Todd.
Okay, so Amanda.
Mayor Rumbouts, I just wanted to check in with our mover and seconder. I do have a draft motion that I would like to read just for your confirmation for that, only because of timelines. I do need to send it to Ms. Catrice tomorrow or tonight. So my draft motion is that correspondence from Stephanie Catrice dated June 23rd, 2021, regarding the intersection of Forest Road and London Line be received. That council supports Ms. Catrice's initiatives to appeal to the County of Lambton for safety measures to be implemented at the intersection, and that staff follow up with the MTO requesting monitoring the intersection. I can also confirm, just a narrative note, that this is the same resolution that the Plimpton, Wyoming Council passed regarding this same request.
Thank you for that clarification. And just so that council is aware, I am the chair of the committee AM, which deals with the infrastructure in the county. And at the last committee AM meeting, this was brought to the attention of our staff, and staff have agreed to look into this intersection. So the process is already in motion, and we're hoping to hear sometime in the early fall a report back to County Council on this intersection. So it's always good to have that support from our municipality and from the people here in Warwick Township and Plimpton, Wyoming, because we want to make sure that we don't lose any other people to that intersection. So all in favor of supporting that resolution? That is carried. Thank you, Council. And 0793 and 0794. All right, we need a motion to receive and file the remainder of the action correspondences. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And we have a few minutes, Council. So we are going to go down to finish up committee and other minutes. We have the minutes of the Development Committee of June 28th, 2021. Need a motion to receive and file those. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. And new business, Blue Water Power Shareholders Annual General Meeting. There's a resolution in regards to the Blue Water Power General Meeting there. We need moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? That is carried. It's always good to see that we have some dividends coming from Blue Water Power. We always appreciate that. And since the only thing left on the agenda is our closed meeting, we're going to go back up to our delegations, which I'm sure we can get started on here soon. Give us a minute to get that all set up.
Mayor Rumbouts, I will, if that's okay, sorry.
Yes, please
let
welcome
Mr. James in.
that would be great.
And the video may take a bit for us to set up, so the advanced couple minutes might be needed. There.
Good evening, Mr. James. How are you?
Okay. No, Rumbos.
Press continue.
I have to there, press that button and I'm in.
I can hear you and we can see you.
Good.
There, we can see all of you now.
That's great.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Mary,
I'm Mary.
I
How are you, Mary?
as well, in case my voice fails me, so you'll hear another voice once in a while. I'm here to ask you for your support in making a film on Warwick's history based on the book A Story Through Time, which was produced here in the township by the History Committee. One thing I should mention right off the top is that the contents of that book belong to you. They don't belong to the committee at all. So that was the wish of the committee to be part of council. And now in making the film, I really should ask you for your permission to use that content. So if you could.
Councillor White.
I move we give Paul permission to use the content. I think he'll do an excellent job.
We
I
have a
second
second.
that motion.
Thank you. All in favor of that? That is carried.
Thank you. My plan is to use the text and the pictures from that. There are about 6,000 pictures, many of which did not make it into the book. And in making a film of this sort, I always want to use local content. I should point out to you that once in a while, such a picture you need for a particular thing is not there. For example, if I'm talking about farming and using a hay fork, it's very difficult to find something local with a hay fork in it. So also, there's maybe some material, well, I know I do some material from Elgin County, which represents exactly the same type of thing that was going on here, but we just don't have the pictures. As you know, Story Through Time was really a collection of people's individual memories. It wasn't meant to be a formal history. And to give the same feeling towards the stories I want to use I'm getting myself off track here. I want people to seem very much alive and very human. All right.
He wants people of the past to seem very much alive, very human, as with most of the same needs and desires as people today, but experiencing lives that will surprise many people today. It's amazing how similar things were then and now. So Paul wants to show a few clips from, with Amanda's help, he wants to show a few clips from past films he has made to give you an idea of the type of work he does. Unfortunately, the clips may appear disjointed. That's the price of editing out other scenes. If you take Cream Corn was a half-hour film, you're going to see 3 minutes of it. So just to give you a taste.
The first clip is Cream Corn Butterscotch Pie. If you remember the church supper at Warwick United Church, this is what it's based on. I tried to get a feeling for the drama of everyday life. And in doing so, I thought it's very important to interview people and document the story that way. Amanda? Amanda?
When they get together and they really feel upset if they aren't.
there's a lot of preparatory work, like not just getting the food ready, but the planning. Like you'd have meetings and everybody had to do, like somebody, oh yeah, they'd donate 2 pounds of butter and somebody else would buy the rolls and somebody else or whatever, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, keep that book. Don't ever lose that book with all those names in it, who did what.
Why do people enjoy it?
Well, it's working with one another, don't you think? Yeah, I think it's the fellowship when they get together and they really feel upset if they aren't included, a lot of them.
Yes.
You know, so and I think it's just a good feeling for the community to work together.
Well, I'm going to make 25 at least. But I think I got enough dough to make a few more than that.
Free allowance.
And have worked well together, so you link them together.
Well, we all had fun too. You know, like when I first met, I didn't do anything, just wash dishes. But we.
Well, I'm waiting for dessert.
Capital of the whole county. That's so many pies.
I'm just a neighbor helping. Okay, well, I think we have some left.
Okay, that gives you some idea of what the film was like. Especially want to show the cooperation of individuals locally. The second clip is from Trees and Trains. It was made for the town of Forest. It was about 90 minutes long, and it was a type of, that length is probably what you'd be looking at, that to up to 2 hours for a film for Warwick. It covers the period of 1859 to 1959. And for Warwick, I would be looking at 1832 to the 1940s. Within the general history of the township, I want to tell the stories of individuals and of groups. Okay, I think we can go on with the second clip.
Just a moment. We're running out of potatoes.
The first train, part of the Grand Trunk Line, passed through this area in 1859, going west to Point Edward from Stratford. Railroad officials had named the station Forest due to its location in the dense bush. William Lahead, a native of Scotland, came to Forest in 1868. A tinsmith by trade, he opened a hardware and tinsmith shop on the south side of King Street. In 1891, the People's Telephone Company was formed as a locally owned and operated business. Soon, 9 operators were working 3 shifts and 4 linemen were employed. In the early years, farmers helped to erect their own poles. The March 23, 1911 headline in the Forest Standard was, "Basket Factory will start here." The factory, located on the south side of Clyde Street, planned to employ about 15 people year-round to make berry boxes and fruit baskets to serve the small fruit, apple, peach and melon industries of southwestern Ontario. By April of 1912, the output was 3 carloads of baskets per week. In the 1930s, the basket factory continued to thrive. Piecework made it possible for individuals to make very good wages. Women earned wages equal to men, or often more than men.
Okay, the last clip is from a film that was just completed for the Coneto Theatre in Forest. It documents the 116-year history of the theatre. And within stories, I like to find, within the big story, I like to find the small ones that are particularly interesting. This one is about a ghost. Run that now.
In the early 1900s, Floyd Rumford was fascinated by the new invention of motion pictures. He and his partner George A. Lundy showed the first moving pictures in the town hall in 1905. Floyd hooked up a generator on the back wheel of an old Ford car. This produced the electricity to run the Coneto brand all-brass motion picture projector. In the 1920s, touring performers like Professor Gladstone appeared often on the Coneto stage. Gladstone, a favorite entertainer, executed magic tricks and predicted fortunes of audience members. Along with touring performers, there were traveling shows like barbershop quartets, school graduations, and public meetings. The main floor of the building was the theater. The second floor was used by the local dentist, Dr. Walter. And the third floor, well, all theater stories should have a ghost. The Paris Opera has its Phantom of the Opera, the Grand Theatre in London, Ontario has Ambrose Small, and the Coneto has George Harvey. George W. Harvey was a tenant on the third floor. Then one day, he mysteriously disappeared. His sudden disappearance remains unexplained. Some sense his presence in the theatre at night, climbing the circular staircase to the third floor.
No one ever saw him again. And this is where the ghost hunters come in, because there's more than a couple people who swear that he still roams the theatre.
The Coneto is possibly the oldest of only 20 small-town independently owned theatres still operating in Canada.
All the small-town theatres are closed in Victoria, in Watford, in Glencoe. For one reason, is because they were not economically viable.
The directors or the most senior members of the day, Charlie Woodward, Junior Butt, Bill Kelly, a few others, they recognized that if that building was anything other than a movie theater, would be a true shame. Me being a new member, I thought they were absolutely out of their mind, but it turns out to be probably one of the best things we ever did. Bill Kelly and Junior Butt, men who really took it on, took ownership of it. Bill Kelly, he was an electrician by trade, and he was never scared to do anything.
That's it. I like ending with that particular segment of the interview. It's great to highlight people who've done great things in the community and are well respected. That was certainly the case. Now, I came here to make a request. At this time, the computer I have is fine for photo restoration. That's something I love to do.
And you do through Photoshop.
Yes, but to do video, my computer is just not up to it at this point. It's well, Well, it stops about every few seconds to make me wait until I can go on something else. To do a 1.5 hour or 2 hour film would take quite a computer. I'm asking council to provide that. It would cost about $2,500 plus taxes. And with that, I would have a computer built for the purpose of video. That would be council's main contribution. My contribution to this would be the work I put into it in the next 2 to 3 years, approximately 3 years. And when the film is completed, the film will be yours as well. I'm sure you've got questions.
Councillor Morris.
Paul, are you sure 2,500 plus tax will be enough?
Well, what we may run into here is permission to use some materials, for example, background music. If I get into anything that's copyrighted, there is an extra cost. And if my background is Scottish, let me tell you something. I don't spend money needlessly, and I would certainly not want to spend yours needlessly. Right now, I think we're talking 2,500 plus, but not a big plus side.
Councillor Morris, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. We set up Paul with $3,300. It gives them a little bit more room to for copyright for this wonderful music, and it would cover the taxes. I think it's about an extra 500, but I'd like to make a motion for 3,300, please.
Do we have a seconder to that? Councillor White, thank you. Any comments or questions about that resolution? All in favor? That is carried. Paul, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight and for sharing those videos that you have. Council obviously is very much in support of this project, and we're very excited to help in any way we can. I'm wondering, when you did the project for the Canetto Theatre, was that a commissioned project through?
For the Canetto was commissioned.
Oh, no.
Well,
like, did they pay you to do that project?
They paid nothing. That I was asked one day to work on it, and I decided to do it.
Well, I'm wondering.
I was just going to say, one thing Paul hasn't mentioned is that you may have seen copies of the video Trees and Trains on sale at the Museum and Forest. That went to the Forest Museum, and Forest Museum gets all the funds from that. Paul was not paid anything for that one either. He has not ever charged anything.
It's I'm retired. I'm very fortunate to be able to do this sort of thing. I love doing history. And if I want to sit for a day and find the history of stagecoaches going through Warwick Village, that's my privilege.
And it keeps me out of it. It keeps him out of my hair.
Well, I have another idea that I'd love to throw by you. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we are working on a new community center for the town of Watford and for Warwick Township, the East Lambton Community Center. But we are going to be decommissioning our old Centennial Hall. And we would like to commemorate that in some way. And Teresa had brought forward the idea of having the community submit stories. Oh, Amanda.
Just we do have some ideas regarding history, Mayor Bumbouts, but I think we'd like to keep them quiet at this time.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
But I do think there's an opportunity, absolutely, for Teresa, who you can see on this meeting, Mr. James. She's our Parks and Recreation Manager, and maybe we could connect the two of you about potentially partnering on that historical project as well. And Mayor, I see that Teresa unmuted. I may ask her.
Awesome. Yes, please.
Actually, Paul and I are meeting tomorrow.
Excellent. Excellent.
Right?
I love this
That's
idea.
excellent.
I think it's so important that our children see the history and see how people in the past lived. Oftentimes we believe that we are so hard done by. And when you see how people lived many years ago, you realize how fortunate you really are. So I think this is really important, these types of projects. Mary, did you have a comment?
There was one other thing I thought I should mention. Paul works very, very hard not to use copyright material, because if he uses copyrighted material, then there is a problem of someone will see it and start asking questions. Did he pay for it? So on and so forth. So he really works hard not to use copyrighted material, especially music.
Yeah, it's, if I could do this just for my own interest, I could use all sorts of things, but obviously for this, if I could use copyrighted material, I have to pay for it.
He's gone as far as buying piano music from the 1920s and had our daughter out in Winnipeg record it and email it to him. So he works hard to avoid paying for things.
That's wonderful.
I appreciate the 3,300. That will make things a little easier.
Wonderful. Yes.
Well, and anything that we can do to help with the project, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thanks ever so much.
And Teresa.
Thank you for joining us tonight, guys.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.
So
Thank
that
you.
gives us
Bye-bye.
all something very exciting to look forward to, Council. And we have come to that time in the meeting where we are going to go in camera. And so we will be returning into open session just to close out the meeting, but we will not be returning on YouTube. So I thank everyone for joining us. Councillor Morris, did you have a comment?
Yeah, if I could ask Teresa one question. When's Ball League starting? Everybody's asking.
Good question.
We've confirmed today with the ball leagues that we're ready to go. We got a correspondence from Lambton Public Health that followed up from the June 30th announcement from the province last week and reviewed it, and we're good to go. So we're just firming up. We do have a game that's already been scheduled for Wednesday night.
Yes.
Oh, so exciting. That is so exciting.
Thank you.
Good to hear. I know of some young men that will be very glad to hear that they're getting started with that again. Any other questions before we go in camera? All right, we need a motion to move in camera then. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and have a good night.